Hey there, film fans. I'm Jeff.
I'm Dave.
I'm John, and welcome back to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies, both new and old, with a strictly positive critical eye.
That's right, and to avoid any lazy negativity, John's going to shout his ass off at everybody to make sure everybody's woken up. And no, we're a positive film. We're a positive film criticism podcast. Anytime we say anything negative about a film, you're going to hear the sound. That sound is going to keep us honest, people. We are going to talk about this movie, and we are going to try our goddamn best to keep it positive, or we drink.
Yes, we do. So pour yourselves a glass and let's step back in time and visit the village.
Ooh, let's head back there.
Yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah, of course. Old just came out this week if you're listening to this in real time. We are going to do an episode on Old, so if you like what you hear, please go ahead through your feed and listen to what Dave and I are going to say about Old. But before we get too deep into our Shyamalan experience of the week, let's pass it over to John to shout our people out.
All right, the shout outs. We have a beer sponsor. His name is Carlos Barrozo. If you want to give him a follow on Instagram, the handle is Barrozo Bar 2019. That is CBARROZOBAR 2019. And if you're digging the music on this episode and every single episode, it's provided by the artist Dasein. That's Dasein, Dasein. You can download all the music for free. Just head over to soundcloud.com/Dasein-artist. All right, you guys. Let's do it.
John, are you kind of bummed that you didn't watch Old with Dave and I? Are you feeling left out?
I'm super bummed. I feel left out. I think you guys are gonna have a raving review for a really excellent movie.
It'll be raving.
Yeah. it'll be raving. We did go to the cinemas to see that, sorry, I think I can't tell if I have to burp. And in honor of Old and M. Night Shyamalan coming back, baby, he's back again. Keeps coming back. He keeps throwing punches. We are going to look back at The Village. We feel like Sixth Sense, everybody's seen a bunch of times. After The Split, apparently was a prequel for Unbreakable, which meant that we needed another version of that. We just left that alone. We skipped Signs because of Mel Gibson, and now we're here at The Village. Though that's the sequence. So we're here to relook at this film. And again, we are going to look at this positively. I think a lot of the negative criticism about the film was about the twist, and maybe that was a letdown for a lot of people. But obviously, 20 years later, we already know about the twist. So our rewatch had that in mind. So that's what we are going to focus on here. This is in our segment Should Have Seen That by Now, which was recommended to us by...
We don't know. This one was done anonymously.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Now, I think we should throw the caveat in that this also could be a was it really that bad? But it wasn't that bad. Like, it wasn't hated on by people. This was still in the M. Night Shyamalan, after The Sixth Sense, as far as, like, how we received the movies. Again, Unbreakable went next in the year 2000. So Sixth Sense, 99, Unbreakable, 2000, and then Signs was 2002. Mind you, those three movies made almost $1.5 billion between the three of them. Sixth Sense, about 648, I think I just saw. The Unbreakable was like 278 worldwide, and then Signs was $400 million worldwide. So you're talking about bam, 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 and then The Village is the fourth in this sequence, which still made a lot of money. It still made $200 million. But this was before Lady in the Water and The Happening, and then The Last Airbender, which, by the way, all those movies made money too. Yeah. And even After Earth, they all made money. Well, Seven out of his first 8 movies made $175 million.
There's a reason for this, because like M. Night Shyamalan is like Chinese food. Like, his career can turn to Chinese. You keep ordering it with the optimism that this one time it won't give you explosive diarrhea for 3 hours. But it just does.
Dave, this is I was just telling the people about how we're a positive film podcast. Enthusiasm doesn't count.
It doesn't get more positive than toxic optimism.
I guess that... Okay. Touche. But anyway, we rewatched The Village, but I'll do the plot synopsis here. So this is the fourth movie. Well, let me do the cast first, actually. I think the cast is the best just in case you need a reminder.
Yeah.
So
recast.
I did.
So the leads of the elders in the village, it's called The Village. So yeah, they're in an isolated village that gives you puritanical Salem witch trial era vibes. Put it that way. The Crucible is definitely something that comes up when you look at this movie. So Sigourney Weaver, William Hurt are sort of the lead elders, along with Brendan Gleeson and Cherry Jones. Kind of a standout performance for me, Cherry Jones. And then out of the younger folk, you have Joaquin Phoenix. This is right after Signs, not too long after Gladiator. I will have my vengeance. Yes, Gladiator. Thank you. Bryce Dallas Howard is really the surrogate lead for this film. I think she ends up kind of, her and William Hurt sort of trade who is the lead of the film. Adrian Brody, after he wins an Oscar for The Pianist over Daniel Day-Lewis and Jack Nicholson, he does whatever he did in this movie. And then you have a lot of...
You have a long double buzz from Dave and I.
And then you have a lot of like, oh yeah, I know those people. Like you have Judy Greer has a big role in this. You have Michael Pitt and Jesse Eisenberg.
I forgot he was in this. Yeah,
me too. Pre The Squid and the Whale. Like this is early Eisenberg. This is probably one of his first movies. This is like,
hi, I'm going to get one line in the film Eisenberg.
Yeah, but then he had that one kind of dramatic scene. Yeah. He had that one, like, kind of where he was doing the earthquake test thing from Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls, but he was doing it to try to get the other things to come out. All right, I'm getting too chatty with the cast here, so let's go ahead into the synopsis. The IMDb synopsis is actually really short. It's just a series of events test the beliefs of a small, isolated countryside village. Anyway, so
yeah.
It's basically the game Werewolf, if anybody's played it, where you're in the village and you have the elders and you have the young people and you're isolated and you're surrounded by the woods. And then at night, things keep happening. These little animals are skinned and left aside, and you can't have anything red because these little creatures that they say, like, those who shall not be named, but not Lord Voldemort. It's something completely different. Even though Mad-Eye Moody is in this and actually opens the film. But anyway, there are these other people. There's some Lost vibes in this too that are sort of terrorizing the village. And anybody who's seen this movie thinks they can spoil the movie with one line right after that, but we're going to leave it there. Something's happened in the village, people. There's something in the woods. And they get pissed off pretty easily.
And I think whenever we're doing this segment, folks, we're going to encourage you to go watch it, if you haven't seen The Village yet. But it's kind of hard to discuss M. Night Shyamalan movies without talking about the reveal at some point. So if you want to just...
We'll give it 5 to 10 minutes of spoiler-free here.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have to talk about it just because I think that's especially when you start getting into the movies that seem to, whether or not you agree with it, seem to frustrate audience members. The further he got into his career, it hangs on the reveal for a lot of people just because.
This movie could be pretty good without it's a positive film podcast. I'm just going to go ahead and say this is a pretty good movie with the exception of the reveal. Like this is fine.
It doesn't bother me. I remember when this one came out, already, I think Signs, even Unbreakable, I think bothered some people. Let's give M. Night Shyamalan a break. Let's have as a community, a world audience, we just give him collectively a break. That guy came out. He had made a few different films. He went to NYU and stuff, so it definitely wasn't like the very first film he had ever made. But his first big film, Sixth Sense, was such an enormous success. It kind of reminds me of like F. Scott Fitzgerald. Like, how the fuck do you follow that up and do it again? I'm not saying it hasn't been done. I just can imagine like the pressure to like recreate that. So I do respect that what he did with Unbreakable, and I like Bruce Willis in that movie a lot. What he did do with that movie was so unpredictable. I wasn't expecting it to be what it was, that I still was intrigued. And up through this point with Signs, I was still intrigued.
Signs is very entertaining.
I appreciated it.
You can shit on the twist. You can shit on some of the crappy dialogue. If you saw that movie in theaters, as I imagine all three of us did, there was a lot of that movie where I was genuinely scared. I was genuinely intrigued. I was very entertained.
Also, the sound mix for Signs was phenomenal. He pays special attention to sound in these films. Like when you're in that cornfield, it is all around you. You're in a cornfield.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, and the sounds. There's some good sounds in the village too. I mean, with the noises
this was,
and everything.
Nominated for an Oscar for sound design, wasn't it?
I think it should
score.
Be. Yeah, it was James Newton Howard's score, which is wonderful. I love his score to this film.
The story I read was it was going to get an R rating because of one sound effect.
Wow.
Can you tell us what it is?
It was one of the stabby sound effects.
Yeah. When he's
it didn't need it, so they took it out.
Let me just finish setting this up. I do feel that I still think that I was still on board with the intrigue and the appreciation of M. Night Shyamalan when The Village came out. I was still very interested in seeing whatever this guy was going to make. There weren't a lot of people who were making movies like this that were so commercially successful. I'm not saying I was starting to think about directors when I was that age, but I definitely was aware that this was one guy and he was writing and directing these. And I love a good twist, and I love tense, suspense, darker, dramatic films. This is, once again, you can say whatever you want, but this movie is about adults acting out dialogue-driven scenes, and there's a lot of tension and suspense built throughout to tell an intriguing story. However, the whole reason I'm saying this is because I do think I remember this being the time where certain people were like, I'm done with M. Night Shyamalan. Like some people were really frustrated by this one. And I think following it up with Lady in the Water, that probably was the nail on the coffin for that group of his ex-fans. I still hung on for a while, and I do like this movie. This is something I have rewatched throughout the years. I'm not saying I don't think it's Sixth Sense, but I appreciate this movie. I don't mind the reveal. So I'm curious when we do get here, if you want to stop this thing and maybe watch it for yourself. I'm excited.
Couple more minutes.
Yeah. Dave, what do you think is first time you saw this movie? First time, not this rewatch. We'll get there in a second. What did you think the first time you saw it?
First time I saw this movie, I was like, meh. I was
like, the whole time, or because of the reveal?
I was a little bored, and it was just, it didn't really do much for me. I wasn't overly interested in it, and then the reveal happened. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but it's like, again, not really. It wasn't really a big thing when I first saw it. Rewatch, I enjoyed this way more.
Yeah, that's what exactly. That's
because
right.
I think because I'd had more exposure to some of these actors, I'd seen like certain performances in this, and also like I've grown as a film goer, and so there's little things like when Judy Greer runs in and decides to tell Joaquin Phoenix exactly how she feels about him, and she just steps up there and pours it all out. You know what's coming in the next shot.
Yeah. From
his performance. Like without saying a word, it's like, oh, this is not going to go well at all. It's like, and then when the payoff does come, I laughed out loud because because you were like, oh, it's gonna no, it's not. Yeah, and
where it just cuts to her.
It just cuts to her howling. Yeah,
so good. Which is kind of funny. You're right, dude. I kind of miss this era, and this is maybe a little nostalgic for us at this point. But like these movies that were coming out late '90s, early 2000s, this is a sweet spot where we're getting to see some of the genius of the upcoming generation. I think Bryce Dallas Howard is amazing in this movie. I think Joaquin is really excellent, and you can see the potential for everything he's going to do. Judy's great, but you also still have the Cherry Jones, the William Hurts, Sigourney's, who are just still bringing it. They're always good, and we got to just see some of their last great dramatic work. I mean, come on, I haven't seen them do too much stuff, in the past 10 or 15 years. Anyway.
I'm just gonna guess this is a $60 million budget. That's a budget that it's such a weird zone, right? And you hear this all the time if you really pay attention to pop culture stuff. Is like the $30 to $50 million movie they say is gone. Now it's either going to be like a $5 million movie that everybody gets the back end on, like everybody does for free, and they do it in 20 days, and it's either shitty and everybody forgets about it and they move on with their life, or it makes $100 million and then they each get money. Or it's a $100 million Netflix movie where they just fucking bet the house on this so that they get eyeballs. The $60 million movie is such a weird thing for a thriller like this. I really imagine that a lot of it went to the talent. Now, I know Dave's boy, Roger Deakins, did the cinematography on this, which is...
I'd forgotten that, too. When that popped up, I was like, oh, no wonder I like this.
Surprise.
Yeah. Well, because it's a very dry palette, right? It's a lot of it's sort of like faded pastels. It's very fall looking, and then they have the red berries that pop, but it still is very vibrant in its own way. But like $60 million is weird. I'm gonna guess that a lot of that was in talent. That's just my guess. But anyway, I thought I had seen this movie, but in hindsight, when there was the reveal and then the coda to the reveal, I realized I didn't watch the whole thing, and it was because everybody else spoiled it for me. So I remember seeing it on TV, and I remember thinking I knew the ending. And so culturally, it's like, this is like pre-Twitter, where the movie was decided for me. So I went into it and I had already made up my mind of how the movie was. But in hindsight, there's like some good high drama. You have some of the horror things where, like Dave was talking about with the wailing, crying, like that's not just drama or comedy. Like that is something that you see in quote unquote horror movies, which I don't know how horror this movie is, but you know, it's in that world where it's very high stakes, where there's just everything is very much at a 10. Nothing is even keeled. Nothing is slice of life. Everything has a greater purpose that is above and bigger than anything in my day-to-day life. And it's exciting to see those performances. It reminded me of The Crucible because of how intense the stakes were, even though I didn't really know what the stakes were, and I thought I knew the ending, so I didn't think it would end up being a big deal anyway. So it was really exciting to watch.
Question about Bryce Dallas Howard. She confused me a little. Like, there were times in scenes where she was playing blind, and there were times in scenes where she made direct eye contact with people. Yeah. And I'm like, was that a choice, or did she just slip and they couldn't get her to do it? Because I don't know what that is. I know with Workman, like, technically she could see his colors, so she knew where he was. But everyone, like, there were times when she reacted to things, and it was like,
you're right. I gotta buzz you because we haven't had a single buzz, and you did call something out about. I know, but you're right. You caught her. I don't think she was 100% blind the whole time, or even like legally blind or anything like that. I think that's true.
It was like eye lines too. That's why it was kind of strange, because a lot of times she wasn't. Not a lot of times, but I caught a few times where she wasn't in the same frame as somebody, but they had clearly set her eye line so that it looked like she was making eye contact with them. And I thought that was
very focused.
That was interesting.
It was like a stage
performance. If she was talking to Joaquin or William Hurt, and she was a good bit of the time, she was supposed to be able to see their color. So maybe they, they did have a little bit of that, and I didn't give enough credit to it, but.
I don't know if they shot in sequence, but I feel like it improved throughout later in the film.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, at one point when they said she's blind, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot she was blind, and I've seen this movie before.
Yeah.
and they said it again in this movie, and I kind of forgot. But the cool thing about it, which I think she might have been actually overplaying this time, which could have been a good thing, is this movie really is about innocence. Like, once we spoil the twist, which is coming up soon, is a lot of this is about the reason they go back to the woods is to get rid of the greed and the baggage of capitalism and society and such. And so, like, just living in these woods, there is this faith and hope for human decency and goodness, and that loss, they don't want to lose innocence. I think that's why it opens with the death of a 7-year-old boy, is it's like this pure thing that was protected from the horrors of reality, of not reality, but of like what we imagine 20th century reality to be. He's shunned from that and then died never knowing it, and then there's extra baggage that's related to that. So she is our surrogate because she's blind, but she actually can see good. She can see hope better than other people, which I think M. Night was pretty good. I don't know if his dialogue writing is very good, but like that kind of stuff in his early movies especially is really great. But he understands the metaphor, and I think Bryce Dallas Howard is a good surrogate for it. The blind thing comes and goes, because sometimes.
All right, so let's talk about like big picture just for a second. Do you guys think, again, comparing maybe if you saw it the first time to how you watched it now, and just the overall interpretation that everyone seems to have towards M. Night Shyamalan, especially for the past 10 years or so, do you think that there is something to be said for? Did he kind of put himself into a corner by succeeding so well early on in a very specific structural style with the reveals, and consistently working in allegory and metaphor? I do feel like the more movies he's released, the more I can literally like picture his audience members sitting there with their arms crossed, trying to figure out what the story is about. It's kind of hard when you know that somebody has a style that's that specific, that you're not trying to be duped. Like, everyone's always trying to get ahead of M. Night. And if you feel like you are ahead of it, or if it's not as high of an expectation as you had initially, or if it doesn't surpass it, then you immediately throw it out. I feel like it's kind of the baby bathwater scenario, which is what I feel about The Village. I like this movie, and I liked it then. And I guess what frustrated me then is that some people decided the reveal wasn't good enough, and so they dismissed the rest of the movie. And I just feel I never felt that way. I felt like there were too many things about it that even if you disliked the reveal, you could. I don't understand why people can't kind of separate those two things. That maybe it's not I see dead people, crazy, blow your mind, oh my God, Bruce was alive the entire time, but it's still something. If this was the only movie he had ever made, I think people would feel differently about it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this twist.
Or if this was his first movie,
like the reveal. I feel like it would have got more, like had more effect if it wasn't handled so clunkily, because it's almost like they're staggered to it. Like it wasn't the big reveal where like there's one statement that makes you go, oh shit, and then they go back and show you all the times when like you should have known, but it's like it was in front of your face the whole time, or that sort of thing. But like in this case, they stumble towards the reveal almost, and then it happens through some like voiceover exposition, and it's just, and then the payoff after that is just not much. So like in my opinion, this movie is great up until that point, and then it falters.
All right, so all right, let's do it. So this is the moment, folks. Pause your pod if you want to go watch it. Are you talking about literally?
Pause and go and watch this, and then come back and hear what we have to say.
When she goes on the gravel road, are you talking about literally when she gets to the ivy wall and climbs over it?
I'm talking when she gets to the fence, and he's already spelled the whole thing out by the time she gets to the fence, and so they ease you into the twist, and he's just talking about how we did this and we did that, and so basically when she goes over that fence, it's like you already know what's on the other side of that fence. I would have liked to have seen her go over the fence, and there's a cop car, like a security car sitting there. I'm like, and like him, her, me would be going, what the fuck? And then
I wonder
they
if
explain.
they tried that.
I don't know.
I wonder if they tried that or an initial draft, and I can totally imagine Roger Deakins being like, M. Night, you've done this before. Like if you try to just pull the rug out in one fell swoop again, people are going to feel like it's not there's a way we can just let it happen. And then there's a strangeness that I think happens when you kind of take on the cop's point of view, when he approaches her. Because like Jeff and like both of you are saying, she's kind of our surrogate when she jumps over, until she jumps over that wall, and then her point of view drops back. We're never really over her shoulder or in her face as much anymore. We're kind of with the cop, and it creates this weird. It's not suspenseful anymore. The tension is totally gone. I do agree with that, but it kind of surprises me about how I do feel about it. The stakes kind of do fall away, but there is a strangeness to it that I appreciate. That I don't know. I understand why it doesn't work for everybody, but I think if he had tried to just let her crawl over the wall and see a cop car, some people would have been like, "Of course, fuck this shit. Of course, that's what this movie's about."
I'm not done. I'm not done. When he adds the scene in the shack, and the scene in the shack is what just tears the whole thing down, because he does the same thing. You'll hear me talk about this in the movie Old. He literally goes through and spells out everything
exactly how they
and it's like, oh yeah, I often wondered why they had the planes rerouted. It's all the things that people are thinking when that thing's revealed, and it's like, oh well, why didn't they see a plane, why didn't they do that? And he has a character sit there and go, and through very clunky dialogue tell you exactly why all of those things you're thinking aren't a thing.
Who is that character?
Yeah, and of course it's him sitting there doing it.
It's M. Night Shyamalan's cameo.
And I hate that. It took everything away for me. I love the movie up to that point.
So if less is more, if he like, what about this? What if he had only shown you at some point, like very, very eloquently or elegantly put that photo of them as young people in the trauma center? If he had just done something like that and not spelled everything out, if you had somehow maybe looked into their secret boxes and seen one article from somebody's past, do you think that would have been enough? It would have just been like, oh my God, of course these fuckers, or it's not just that they're weirdos in the village, but they actually organized this, and then that's enough.
Or if we never saw the other side of the fence.
Yeah, and then we could think even more about Hey, I'm definitely not disagreeing with that.
She climbs that fence, takes 2 steps, and bus takes her down.
Boom!
Just takes her down.
Fucking Final Destination. Some Final Destination shit. Yeah, just knock her out. I think, man, I feel you. That's a really good point.
And I feel like that's a lot, and also like that clunky, I'm gonna explain the scene, everything you've just seen to you.
Yeah.
Like I hate when that happens.
Let's be specific too, because he does it in Sixth Sense, but he does it visually, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And it's a build, because you're racing, like it's his thoughts racing towards the conclusion of what we've just been shown.
And it's just Haley Joe's monologue replaying. It's not new information. It's the information we already knew. It was oh my God, the Sixth Sense.
That one was edited to perfection. It was like that's how you do it. And this one, for me, no, like certainly not in that shack. that whole shack scene annoyed the hell out of me.
Let's talk about it. So
What about
up until the shack scene? What were you
Go
going
for
to
it, go
ask?
for it.
I was going to say up until
just-
the shack scene, you liked the movie though, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so John,
What
were you-
about? I was just gonna say, what about? He always has some funny cameo in it, and we're talking about his voice right now. But
M.
the
Night.
shot, the reflection shot when he opens the little chest of vaccines.
I was willing to
Dave,
go
what
with
was
him
your
on that.
favorite shot in the movie? What was sequence, like best shot sequence? Do you think Roger brought it hard in one part of this movie, or were you
Two.
kind
I
of?
have two that I really that really struck me. One is the porch when they're sitting on the porch together at night. That
Yeah,
was
that's
just
cool.
like that
lovely.
man
Yeah.
can light a night scene like nothing else.
Yeah,
and
it was really
the
cool.
other one was
Yeah.
actually the opening we talked about earlier with the funeral, and it's almost like we're standing in the crowd looking over the top of everyone's heads, but they did a really tricky thing in the camera that you can't see really the size of the coffin or anything, and then we go straight away to an aerial shot where you can see that this guy's laying on the ground next to this coffin talking to it, and he's bigger than it.
Yeah,
And it's like,
Yeah.
oh shit, that's a kid. And it's just a little jolt, but they did it entirely like with just camera angles. And I kind of like that sort of thing.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all his use of the fire light around, the border
yeah.
torches.
yeah.
Whenever they were over there, of course, that was gorgeous. This is kind of, again, allegory, metaphor. It can be cheesy in the wrong hands. The whole issue with the bad color whenever red was exposed.
And the dialogue's the worst part about all this stuff. It's like, it was the bad color. And it's like, it's red. Just say it's red and we know it's bad.
I know. I
Yeah,
noticed.
or just
I
don't,
noticed
just
in
don't
my.
refer to it. Just don't. Yeah. Just
I noticed in
ignore
my
it.
version too. They fixed the kid that was wearing red at the wedding. There's infamously one kid wearing red at the wedding.
Is
Oh, I didn't know that.
Is
Is
that
that in
a
trivia?
Is that a Schindler's List reference or what?
No. It was just. I think it just snuck in. I don't know, but they dulled it down.
Oh, okay, cool.
Wow.
Did you guys catch that? Because in The Sixth Sense, I think the song "Bailamos" is playing by Enrique Iglesias. If you know your Enrique Iglesias, late '90s, early 2000s. Did you catch the line where Ivy asks Joaquin's character, "Will you dance if I ask you to dance?" Because all I was thinking about
God.
was fucking Enrique Iglesias and that, and I was like, "Yes, M. Night, what's up?"
Yeah, he's
Let's go.
sitting there. He's writing away. He's got the stereo on. He's like, "Oh, that's good. Yeah."
Will you dance?
Click.
Wow. Wow.
Just me.
Jeff, do you have any standout
Well, I-
performance moments or like?
Oh shit. Actually, honestly though, the one that Dave said where Joaquin doesn't say anything, because Joaquin in the early 2000s, all of his characters were brooding. This is that sort of typecasting thing that you hear about with acting all the time, where it's like, yeah, it's like Commodus. I don't know what Commodus was written as, but whatever Joaquin did, and Joaquin did work in the 90s, and he auditioned like crazy, so everybody in LA knew who he was. He has a lot of stories about losing like multiple roles to DiCaprio, and obviously his older brother. And then, like he was in the mix. He was just like right behind them. So he was a known person. But for some reason, after Gladiator, it was brooding role, Signs, this, and I'm not saying he didn't have range or he grew into his range, but this was like peak him. Like it's like your sweet spot of Joaquin, and just the way he would look without having to say anything, the way he would read the letters staring down is always like, you never know because you want to be able to see their eyes, but you just knew the way that he was reading the letters. So he stood out for me. One thing that stood out, and this is a directorial thing that you guys this is your account, not mine, but M. Night would do, I guess, like the Kurosawa thing where there would be, in stillness, he would try to find movement. So if there were 10 people standing still, he would have one person like make a prayer signal. And that was supposed to be our audience knowing like this is what they're not just pondering, like they are praying. Or one person would freak out, but everybody else would be really still, and that would catch my eye. Like he really is a good visual filmmaker. I'm dragging out your answer to this.
I think so too. No. I agree, dude. I think he does have I don't think you can say that he doesn't have an eye for composition and
for what the audience would be like. There weren't any
sequencing and
scenes that were just like
he knows
blah.
how to. I really like. I know it's a famous one, but it got me again this time. I had remembered it right before it happened, and it really delivered for me when they invade the village the first time, the bad people, and she's just standing there holding out her hand on the porch because she knows Joaquin's going to grab her, and then as soon as he touches her, the sound effect of the grabbing of the hand as it's getting closer and immediately slips into slow motion. Drop the score. James Newton Howard's theme comes in, and they move in slow motion into the house. It's beautiful, dude.
I also love the
gorgeous.
out of focus creature you can see coming towards the hand as well.
Exactly.
Out of the
Yeah,
darkness.
okay,
Visually,
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah.
Can I talk about the creatures though? I know this was 2004. That's what the creatures looked like. That's what they did.
I think they're
like
supposed to do. That's what I'm saying though. I think
this
they're
was the
supposed to
second
be
design.
kind of like cheap and, kind of whatever criticism you have. I think I know what you mean, and I don't think it's supposed to be anything more than that. I think he's trying to make the point. I just don't know if the point worked for you and worked for a lot of other people, but I didn't need it to be something else for me to believe that under the right circumstances you can get people to be scared of that fucking thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know. It looked like a giant like drunk overweight hedgehog thing, and I was like,
Sonic's
I don't
really
know.
let himself go.
Well, wait. Okay, questions though. Why is it that so? Obviously, we're spoiling this now. So, and I didn't mean to be so hard on Adrian Brody. He had a really tough task, and I think he did the best.
No, but we should tackle it at some point though. It's a weird. I don't know if he would have gotten away with that these days.
He's playing.
I mean that with respect.
Let's say
to him and the community that he was representing.
I guess you would say low IQ. What's the phrasing that they say for?
I'm not even sure. I don't even know if they would write a role that vague today. And I don't. I'm not hating on M. Night Shyamalan. It was a different climate, but do you know what I mean? Like I feel like it would have needed to be specified in today's.
Yeah, we would have needed it to have like medical.
Yeah,
like it would have had to be. It said he
Which
was sort
would
of
have been impossible in this context.
I know.
Right.
He was like a simpleton, so he had the body and the will of a full grown man, obviously, but not the intellectual capacity to understand much beyond that. So there's a lot of laughing and giggling and a lot of he's flirtatious, like the mind of a child in a full grown man's body, I guess you could say, and he did a fine job, but. Did the elders not go fucking insane when they started being like, what the fuck is going on? Like, do you think that was like kind of a missed opportunity where they were always even keeled? And in hindsight, when you know the twist, it makes sense. But in looking back on this rewatch, that's the one piece of this that's hanging over me where, first of all, they locked this person who is now a killer. He's actually murdered. He's actually murdered somebody. And they locked him in a room where under the floorboards is the key to everything. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know about you, but give me 1 hour in a room by myself and I'm going to start pulling those floorboards apart. So obviously I'm going to find this thing. And the windows were apparently really easy to get out of. So I'm not going to hate on that kind of shit because fine, you got to make your movie, you got to do your thing. But why is it that the elders didn't go, nobody's allowed outside? What the fuck is going on? How is this happening? Because we're supposed to be in charge here and there is actually something, you know what I mean? Shouldn't they have been a little bit more freaked out? Wouldn't that be a caveat to this that could have elevated this?
Yeah, who's doing that? Yeah.
Well, there was that one again. I know what you mean, dude. Ultimately, I agree with you. But William Hurt did it when he was explaining stuff to Ivy. After he showed her the creature costume, he did have that one line where he said, "I do believe that it is one of the elders," and it kind of made me think that.
Oh, he thought it was Brendan Gleeson.
M. Night Shyamalan was trying to play with like even in this like completely controlled, false reality that these people were trying to make room for something that is unexpected. Like there is chaos that even they can't control. I just don't know if he fleshed it out well enough. I don't know if one line and not showing you any of that was enough, because it is also just it's hard. It's a stretch to believe that Adrian Brody, under those circumstances of the character that was presented to us, that he could have gotten away with that much violence and had no one suspected.
Also, they didn't have sanitation, so like if he was skinning animals, like he would have had the phrase "caught red-handed" comes from Shakespeare, but it's also been around for centuries, because when people would stab somebody, they would have blood on their hands for days. Like it would be like a henna tattoo on your hands. That's where the phrase "caught red-handed" came from. His hands would be red the whole movie because he was skinning animals.
What color are their hands now?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you what. One thing I would like to mention when we were talking about performance before, Bryce Dallas Howard, when she finds Joaquin Phoenix on the floor, and she comes in, and like when she first, because she's walking forwards and her foot just taps him, and you see the thought process go across her face, and then she quite calmly gets down and she's like calmly holding him, but the second they try to remove her, she just destroys herself. And goes to pieces, and it was an amazing scene, like from top to tail. That was a really good performance.
I mean, there were so many. Again, I'm not a hater by any means in this stuff. I like going to see the giant movies too, but there were a few moments when I was watching this one where that one was one, and there were a couple other really intimate, dramatic moments where I was like, you kind of forget sometimes that these actors are so good. There were like 2 people on set that day, Roger Deakins, his grips, and like a few other people. And she came in and just had to do that. There was no giant green screen. The stakes weren't super high. There weren't 15 trailers sitting outside. She probably, it just sometimes you forget that like a simple drama still requires work that good to actually make moments like that land, like to make that drama sell. We can say what we want, and I think we're on the same page about what Adrian's character, what it was supposed to do in the story and how he chose to play it. When he does confront Joaquin Phoenix, though, that got me. It's a very, very similar repeat of what M. Night Shyamalan chose to do directorially in The Sixth Sense with the stabbing at the very beginning of that movie.
Oh yeah.
But it still landed for me. I mean, I don't know if that he's just trying to perfect the knife stabbing thing.
Was it a shooting at the opening of Sixth Sense, or is it a stabbing?
Yeah, he's got Wahlberg has the Donnie, right?
Yeah,
he has the gun, and Bruce is walking toward him trying to like calm it, and then he takes it in the gut and he looks down. But it still landed for me, and I love how M. Night Shyamalan does know when to just pull back and be static, like you guys were talking about. Like visually, he knows how to make it brutal. That was hard to watch when Joaquin falls to the ground and we're just sitting back and you see Adrian Brody clean the knife and then think about leaving and realize, oh, he's not dead yet, and he has to go back and just.
That's good by
give
Adrian
it to him
Brody.
again. Wow, that's
thought process.
To watch.
Between stabs, that thought process that Adrian Brody went through, that is something that only a good actor can go through. So again, I didn't mean to be
only
so
good
hard
actor, and I thought directorially, I don't even know, if Adrian, I don't know if anybody talked about this, but it kind of gave me a good example of the pace of this ridiculously like Salem style community. Like there was the lack of urgency for him to leave, because there was nothing happening outside. I guess everyone was like a half a mile away doing something at 2 miles an hour, because I just felt the whole movie like slows down and tenses up at the same time. I appreciate that for sure.
The towns. We have to go to the towns. The medicines. Everything had an S. Dave, this movie was shot really fucking well. All right, it was shot well. The sound effect thing, I thought it was a little Lost-esque, where they had these weird like monster sounds for whenever they were out by the outskirts of the woods, and we found out, and of course we find out later it's an animal preserve, so there are wild animals out there. But the weird like sounds, not for me. But as far as filmmaking, were there other things that you really liked? Because we're talking story a lot, but like, was there anything else any other meat on the bones of like the way that it was shot?
No, although I do feel like, because I know M. Night, and again, I'll talk about this with Hold, where there's a lot of camera movement. And I feel like he encourages moving the camera a lot to position you in the scene and to bring you to what you're looking at. And I feel like Roger pulled him back from that a little bit. It's like, we're going to move this camera if we have a reason to move this camera, or if we're going for a desired thing. And I feel like that was a really good melding. And because it was more like it wasn't distracting. There's a couple of times when my eye was drawn to something and I was like, that's a really good shot or something. But that's me, so sitting in as a general person watching the film, you're just going to be like, you're not distracted by the cinematography at all. Like, it's smooth and it's nice.
Yeah. And
was it handheld at all? Because
once.
Yeah, because I thought I remember seeing it, and this style is always handheld for some reason. There's something about going back to that.
Right at the beginning when they show the gravestone.
That part was really, really cool. It reminded me of The Omen, like mixed, not even more so than like The Crucible and stuff. Like The Omen, the way that it had this looming like weight. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Dave, I like what you said, dude. I think we could. Anyone who knows anything about him could totally hear him saying that in their meetings. Like, we're gonna try to only move when we need to. That is kind of his creed anyway. But it's extra important for this movie because obviously this is a farce. How do you create, using cinematography, the idea that this is how this world actually is. We're not trying to update a Salem style thing with a lot of life in the camera. We want you to feel like you're kind of stuck in this slow moving place. I thought that was brilliant. That paired with, I was mostly acting at the time when I saw this movie. So I remember being very thoughtful of the fact when I first saw it, before the reveal. And I think I appreciate this more and more each time I see it. The dialect work from especially the adults, the first generation of settlers, if you will, quote, are different. And I remember thinking, where are they from? I remember
Yeah.
I knew these people were all really well trained. So this was on purpose. And I was like, what are they doing? And that is nuance. And it's subtle. I don't think everyone is only thinking about that whenever you hear them speak for the first time, but it's just enough. And that with the way that they choose to tell the story up until the reveal, I just don't know if this gets quite enough credit. I'm afraid The Village gets lumped in with some of his films that people don't like very much.
Like everyone is like, this is one of his most underrated films.
It has a 44 Metascore. That seems crazy, right?
Yeah.
44 seems low.
It does seem a little crazy.
I think
it was starting to be popular to hate on him around this point, though.
Yeah.
Which, not cool.
And
not cool, critics. This one's for you.
And then, and then he encouraged that with The Happening.
I mean, fuck, man. When he goes Lady in the Water, he tried and failed, but that happens. But The Happening, I mean, I wonder if he did this movie and he was just seeing Deacon's frame leaves blowing, and he was like, I figured it out. The next movie. It was a dream. Did you guys notice that the only person in the credit scroll ahead of the cast? So it goes end of movie, and it's usually like first production assistant or something like that. It's featured violinist. And then it was
Hillary
the
Hahn.
cast.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck yeah, that is so
That's the only way they could afford them.
Yeah.
Dude, not gonna lie, I was super into fucking music at the time when this came out. When I was listening to that score for the first time in the theater, I was like, that's fucking Hillary Hahn, dude. I was so proud of myself. I fucking nailed it. Beautiful score. James Newton Howard. Did he win? Did we confirm that?
No, he did not win.
Lost? Okay, just curious.
So yeah, you can actually watch this at the moment on Peacock for free. Yeah.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Damn it.
Ads at the beginning.
Why didn't I just fucking pay for Peacock?
I'm enjoying that. If anyone hasn't watched Peacock, you sign up. If you don't pay for it, you get your ads at the very beginning for like 3 minutes, and then you can watch a movie without ads.
Oh, wait,
I
have
for
that.
a lot of their movies.
I signed up for that. Shit.
Jeff.
Why did that?
It's not always that structure, but it is that structure sometimes. So yeah, go give it a shot.
All right.
And I know we already kind of said it about her, but like, God damn it. This was the first time I saw Bryce Dallas Howard.
She's great.
In this frame. And I was like, whoa. And she has not let me down in her career. I think she's magnificent.
And Judy Greer. And I'm shouting out Cherry Jones because early on she had this smirk on her face, and everybody else
when she's walking through the party. Yeah.
Every time for the first half hour, every time we saw her, she had this weird, like, sinister smirk. I thought she had this evil puritanical, those like puritanical, like those people that were just like cackling at everything. And I was like, what is going on with this lady? And then I'm like, wait, it's that Cherry Jones? She must be up to something. So John, when you're talking about the nuance, Cherry Jones and Brendan Gleeson as your third and fourth most important elder, you can't get better than that, because that's where you get depth of character. That's where it's not just like your storyline is good. That is where all of a sudden you have 10 layers by your supporting cast being as good as these motherfuckers were. That was great.
60 million. That's what it gets you.
Yeah! All right, people. Well, like we said, Dave and I are going to stick around, and we're going to talk about Old. So please find that in your feed. We're going to talk about some Shyamalan. We are qualified. And if you like us, please like and subscribe to all of the socials. As John said at the beginning, we would love to hear from you. And if you have any movie that you think you should have seen or that we should have seen by now, please reach out to us. We love doing these kinds of, look backs and from the future. We think it's really, really, really fun. So thanks for tuning in. We are now going to head to our What You've Been Watching, our recommendations of the week. As always, we start with Dave. I hope you are queued up and ready to go with your recommendations.
I mean, it was a hell of a busy week. I had to go away to a wedding this weekend, which is usually when I get my movie watching in. But I'm halfway through, and it was a recommendation from the guys on the Matt and Mark movie show, Gunpowder Milkshake.
And?
I'm halfway through.
Oh, nice, dude.
It looks beautiful. Like, every single frame has an element of color in it somewhere. They love their blues and reds. It's shot beautifully, and it's fun. It's good fun so far.
Nice.
If they can hold this, it's a hit.
Nice. It's awesome.
That one is in my queue too. Yeah. I'm getting queued up and ready to move to Los Angeles, so I didn't really get to watch too many other things other than The Village this week. But I have queued up, and I'm hoping to watch at least maybe one of them tonight. Zola, the new release from A24, which is supposed to be really awesome.
Shit.
Heard really good things. And Gunpowder Milkshake. So
is Zola on something? Because I really want to watch it. Is it on a streaming service?
I don't think it is yet. No.
Okay. Just curious. Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't quote me, film fans. Look it up for yourself. But I'm not sure. How about you, Jeff? Did you watch anything?
Well, Chloe was watching Atypical, so I would walk in and then I would get hooked and watch an episode or two and stuff. And I think it's pretty entertaining and pretty fun. But The Crime of the Century, man. HBO Max. I'm going to say it on the old episode, too, just because I want to really lay it in. It's two-hour episodes. Alex Gibney directed, and it is about the opioid epidemic. The first episode, a little tiny history of opium, and I didn't really understand how far back. It went back to ancient Egypt and then all over Asia and Europe. I had no idea that it was traded with, like, herbs and spices. And then the Sackler family, pretty much, first episode, commercializing that. The second episode is about a company called Insys, which took fentanyl and turned it into a drug, and the fraud, and it's just fucking like it's a must watch. It's a must watch, I think.
Damn.
Crime
Where
of
is
the
it
Century.
again? Say it again.
HBO Max. It's called The Crime of the Century. Alex Gibney. And that's
Checking it out.
All right, Dave, I'm excited to talk to you about Old. Very, very excited.
Have fun.
John, have a good time heading west.
Thank you so much.
Go
I'll see you soon,
West.
film fans.